Had we not created a permanent fund here in Alaska, most people agree, no doubt those dollars would have all been spent in the traditional manner that has gotten those states and nations into trouble. Oh boy, nothing but continued violence in Iraq, one incident after another, beheadings, all sorts of terrorist activities. I've heard all sorts of suggestions as to how we might deter terrorist activities in Iraq. They range from the sublime to the ridiculous to the grossly politically incorrect and back again. Again, totally politically incorrect and evidence of the frustration and difficulty of coming up with any method and means to effectively offset the terrorism that is going on in that country today. It certainly would be far more acceptable than some of the activities that went on in Abu Ghraib and some of the other prison encampments. But there is another approach that I would much prefer to see undertaken, and which I think has enormous potential. And that is something that first was broached nationally in an article by one Stephen Clemens back in April, I believe it was, in which he had written an article for the New York Times suggesting that in Iraq they adopt a program similar to what we have done in Alaska, and that is use their oil wealth to invest in spin-off dividends that would impact each and every Iraqi, give them all a piece of the action. Here in Alaska, we have a constitution that says we manage the resources. Depending on some of this years ago, the maximum benefit that most equitably met that constitutional mandate was to set up an investment account funded with a portion of our oil wealth, which would spin off dividends. I wanted to create a stock sharing concept and actually give people a share of dividend earning stock per year. That was changed somewhat from the original intent, but to date, we have a program which each year sends a check to each and every Alaskan. Now, that gives them a sense of ownership. It also inclines them to promote healthy development and to assure that the maximum benefit from that natural resource development is equitably distributed, at least a portion of it, and that each and every citizen sees some piece of the action. Now, why do we feel that that is a more appropriate approach than that utilized by other states and nations that have been blessed or, in some instances, cursed with what the British economist terms the devil's excrement? They contend that in many instances, states and nations that have had enormous amounts of oil wealth flow through their countries have found themselves worse off than they were before. The reason being that a few people at the top of the heap reap the harvest, and the little guy at the end of the tube sees virtually nothing. Also, there's an inclination on the part of politicians, of course, to spend every dollar they can get their fingers on.